back.
Jim, what group are you with?
Veterans for Peace and Vietnam Veterans Against the War.
Okay, and why is it important for you to be here tonight and with your activist friends here?
I enlisted in the U.S. military in 1965 during the early stages of Johnson's escalation in Vietnam. I soon learned that the escalation was based on a lie, and here we are again. The Afghan war is a little bit different, but the Iraq war is based on a lie, and now we're escalating in Afghanistan, where most of the experts in Afghanistan and a lot of our own experts say it's a mistake to do that.
And Jim, with the Vietnam thing, they actually used a hoax. Remember the Gulf of Tonkin resolution? Sure. So here they didn't even have to do that. They don't even have a hoax unless it's, oh, we got to get Al-Qaeda crap that they've been building up over the years.
Well, I think Obama's whole card is that he appears to be doing it in a transparent way. He acknowledges the questions and the problems and the issues, and says that from a military strategy standpoint, he wants to try this to see if a escalation in our troop levels can stabilize the Afghani government and their military and police forces enough to allow us to withdraw rather than retreat.
Of course, there's a lot of questions about that government in Afghanistan. There's corruption there. There's a whole thing about the dope in the country, you know, the main product that they're producing. And on top of all that, the international press, the German press, said they were very disappointed with Obama's speech. They didn't feel like it had any real substance to it, that it was empty.
Despite the hopes that people all over the world had for a dramatic change in foreign policy from the Obama administration, and I think to a large extent that's probably true. Nevertheless, our government, since the beginning of this, has been so far to the right that we got a long way to go before we catch up to where the rest of the world has been all along. The coalition, the willing, never was much of anything, and it won't be much better with under Obama's administration. They're not all that willing.
It looks like they're going to have real problems getting some of our so-called allies to put troops up. I think there's a big resistance movement in the United Kingdom to that, and in Europe itself, with respect to contributing more troops to this thing. Is that what you've heard too, Jim?
Oh yeah. The people in these other countries, the NATO countries, are not particularly willing to commit large numbers of troops to this effort. It's different than Iraq to the extent that they recognize where the 9/11 attacks from where they were launched. Nevertheless, they also know that you can't beat an insurgency or the people in a country who are waging a civil war on their own ground. It hasn't worked before there or other places, and it's not very likely to work this time either.
And Jim, tell me something about your flag here. It's the Veterans for Peace, is it?
No, this is Vietnam Veterans Against the War.
Vietnam
Veterans Against the War.
Against the war. And is this a national group or local?
It is. VVAW was founded in 1967 while I was overseas. Mm-hmm. It was founded in New York City when 7 American veterans who were attending a anti-war demonstration in New York decided that there should be an organization of Vietnam veterans who were willing to speak out against the war. And so they founded the organization, Vietnam Veterans Against the War. And before the war was over, before the Vietnam War was over, there were 30,000 members of VVAW. So that was 1967. I got out of the service in 1969. and stayed active in the anti-Vietnam War movement here in Baltimore until the war ended. So the VVAW has a long history of.
And you know, Jim, I heard a congressman say on Capitol Hill that about half the homeless in this country are Vietnam vets.
It's astonishing how many veterans in general. There are so many living Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Vietnam War veterans and Vietnam era veterans as well, but more so the war veterans. They are there because they're suffering PTSD, which is in the news big time now because it's finally recognized as a serious wartime collateral damage of our own people.
Well, you've got all these suicides, 15, 16 a day happening in this country from returning vets, and it's really a staggering numbers, and you wonder what is that all about? Do you have any idea, Jim?
People in the military go there, particularly the ones who are involved in direct combat. They go there and they are told to do what they're trained to do, and they see the reality of what it means to the people that live there, and they question the validity of what they're doing, what the government is doing, and what they have personally done. Veterans for Peace organized a march in 2003 from Mobile, Alabama to, not 2003, 2006, from Mobile to New Orleans. And it was called the Veterans and Katrina Survivors March to New Orleans. And there were Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, young people, in that march, that about 200-mile march, and they broke down crying, seeing the devastation there that was worse than what they'd seen in Iraq. So the parallels that people are seeing here with the war there pushes some of these fellows over the edge too.
Anything else, Jim?
You mentioned the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
Yeah.
The attack, the supposed attack by the Vietnamese against the American destroyer happened on August 4th of 1965. That was my birthday, and that's when I turned 19.
Right.
And 3 days later is when Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. And it was about 2 years later that I figured out that it was all a lie, and we were killing and we were being killed for that lie.
And the Iraq War, there's a study out that showed the Bush-Cheney gang had perpetrated 935 either direct lies or deceptions or half-truths in order to get us into Iraq. I mean, and we've had all these deaths, all these injuries, all these soldiers are dead, they're wounded, 30,000 plus, seriously wounded. And now this Afghanistan thing just keeps on going on.
It's going to get worse and worse. Yeah. Cheney's been one of the prime critics, even yesterday morning, of Obama's policies. And it brought to my mind the saying, how can you tell when Cheney or Bush are lying? When their lips are moving.
Okay, Jim, thanks so much.
My pleasure, Bill.
And what's the name of your group again?
Vietnam Veterans Against the War and Veterans for Peace.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yep.